Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 48 of the Glimmer Gang Podcast. I, Blake, will be your host today as Teddy was unable to appear today, but I'm here, as always, with our wonderful co-host, Lee. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. Recovering from a busy 4th of July.
Oh, yeah, that was
Yesterday as a
crazy.
recording.
Yesterday, as of recording, I still heard some fireworks even up here. There were, I guess, some people across the border that were still celebrating up here.
Right. So, here in Michigan, most fireworks are legal. Like, we can have all the good stuff here. Like, and you can just
Mhm.
walk up to a tent and buy them, essentially. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, the way it works here, at least in the town that I live in, big tourist town, we will have fireworks. We had them all night last night till about midnight. Everybody cools down at about midnight, which, they're celebrating. It makes sense. But
Yeah.
that's going to happen all weekend. That'll happen tonight and Saturday and maybe even a little bit on Sunday.
Yeah,
Because
as
when
America does.
4th of July weekend, and also I get to go for everybody that doesn't know what it is, I get to go to a powwow, which is a
Ooh.
Native American celebration. It's a giant uh, festival where dancing and playing drums and concessions. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun, and that
Does
always
look
coincides with 4th of July weekend around here, so it's always really busy.
nice. Well, for today, with set champs just around the corner, we wanted to take a look at the top cards in the meta right now and what's making them so defining for the meta. And with that, what cards may be too dominating in the meta, and looking into the banning process and what other TCGs have done and what Ravensburger may decide to do, and if we feel if any of these cards actually deserve to be banned at the moment. But before we get started on that, I do want to mention if you haven't already, reach out to your LGSs. If you were doing Get Set Champs this weekend, Ravensburger did put out a statement that shipments of the kit were delayed, so your stores may decide to postpone their events until their kit comes in. So reach out them and find out as soon as possible, as soon as you hear this, if you haven't already. And if your stores haven't reached out to you yet, I got to call mine after we're done recording this.
So is there? I haven't really looked into it because the one store that the one I have confirmed I know is going to get they already have it confirmed that they're going to be fine. They put out a statement themselves as soon as Ravensburger did.
Mhm.
Um, is there like a standard operating procedure that Ravensburger's like asking LGSs to go with? Like, are they going to extend time? Like, what's going to happen? Do we know, or is it just a matter of rescheduling?
I, as far as of right now, I have not seen anything further on this. It's just an unfortunate event right now, and I don't know if they're going to be extending it a weekend
Fair.
to accommodate for this mishap. But we'll see, and hopefully it won't clash with any other um, set championships if they do have to reschedule or
Sure.
anything.
Sure. Makes sense to me.
All right, but getting into, we picked out about 10 cards here that are seeing a ton of play in either one very top meta deck or a few different ones, and we're just gonna go through this list and go over what's making these not songs. There are some songs in here, but
Couple.
a couple songs. But these cards right now are just seeing the most play and having the most impact, it seems, on the meta. So we'll get started with probably everyone's least favorite card. We've all been talking about it for like the last month or so. Bucky Scroll Squeak Tutor, our favorite two cost inkable 1/1. Discard a card. Your opponent discards a card whenever you get to play Floodborn with Ward.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. Like, I don't know. I don't know if bans and restrictions are on the horizon, but if this card right here keeps dominating the way that it is,
Yeah.
it's going to be a problem. Like, and it should be discussed at the very least.
Yeah, I right now the event at Bochum is going on, and I believe one of the only undefeated decks as of right now is a green steel list.
Yep,
So,
that makes sense. It makes
or
sense. I
emerald
mean,
steel, emerald steel.
yeah. Emerald Steel list, absolutely.
Yeah,
But you also have to understand that just because this card is going undefeated right now doesn't necessarily mean that it's really that big of a problem, because you got to when you go. This is a lesson that I learned going to 2 DLCs this year so far. It's really just all a matter of who you end up seeing. It's the
yeah.
matchups. If that player has seen a good matchup every round, that's a cakewalk.
Oh yeah.
I don't, and I don't know what the rest of the field looks like in Bochum, or is it Bochum or Bochum? I don't know.
Bochum. I
Bochum.
think.
All right, something like that. Sorry, Germany.
Sorry, Germany, if we have that wrong.
Apologies. But yeah, and I think one of the other things that you really have to think about with this card is it's not only dominating, but it's not fun to play against.
Yeah,
It takes a lot of the fun away. I know when I play Bucky and that engine gets going and I'm sitting there top decking turn 4, like that
yeah.
doesn't feel great. That
No,
doesn't feel fun. So, we'll see what happens with it though. I do think that this is probably this list is in no particular order, but I do think that like this is the one that jumps to the front of everyone's
it's
minds when you think
it,
of this type of discussion.
everywhere you go right now. There's at least some discourse over how annoying Bucky is. No
Exactly.
matter where you go,
Exactly.
Facebook, Discord,
Yeah.
you see this guy everywhere, and you see everyone being upset with him. And I think we'll just go ahead and jump to the second card, because the second card is pretty much the
Yeah.
reason why he's become such a problem, and that's Diablo Devoted Herald. The being able to shift for discarding in action, and being able to trigger Bucky on turn 2 when you play Bucky, if you have played a Diablo on turn 1.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. I this brings up the age-old question in TCGs when it comes to bans and restrictions: is do you ban the card or do you ban the enabling card?
right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
there's a lot of discourse as to, and I think it's a case to case basis, but there's a lot of discourse on which one's better, which one's worse. But like I said, I think it's case to case, card to card basis. It
Yeah,
depends on the interaction, whether the
right.
enabler or the card itself is the issue. And honestly, I think if Diablo got banned, Bucky would be as bad. It wouldn't be as bad to face it
Yeah,
anymore.
because em- Emerald Steel was kind of a thing
Hmm.
in set 3, but it was a lot slower because it took until turn
I
3
I
to get that
played
burst.
I played Emerald Steel in the Glimmer Gauntlet, and it was a
Yeah,
very similar idea to what's happening with the Bucky deck right now. But like you said, especially we were limited to rares and lower, but it was too slow. You can't get going quite quick enough, and them releasing all of the cards. The Diablo and the Aladdin, obviously, that fit into this deck that have the alternate shift cost. It's
yeah,
exactly what it needed to actually start popping and doing. I mean, I think we all knew Bucky was gonna be good. We just hadn't seen what made it good yet.
yeah.
And I think Diablo's the exact card that it needed to be better, to be phenomenal.
Uh, yeah, being able to trigger him on the turn he's played, especially that early in the
Yeah,
game, sets back the game for your opponent so much.
so early,
And
so
and,
early.
and with that, with Diablo's other ability, you get to draw
Yep.
cards whenever they draw.
And that gap just keeps getting wider.
Right.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
Because
The
chances are, if you're not in steel, you probably don't have an answer to that right away. You might have, like, depending on deck you're playing, etc. You might be able to brawl them if you're in Ruby,
right.
but that's beyond that, there's really not a whole lot you're doing.
Yeah, the only other thing is also an emerald if you bounce him with Kit, but then
Sure.
your
Yep.
opponent is just playing him out the next turn or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. You
It,
don't really want to bounce them.
yeah, and therefore triggering Bucky again.
And
Because
that's another thing. That's another thing about Bucky, and I think we see that with the bounce package as well. That Bucky limits your ability in a lot of inks to remove things
yeah,
because, especially in Emerald, your way of removing things is bouncing essentially, and you
yeah,
don't want to do that anymore. It essentially stops you from being able to do that when you have like the bounce cat package or Bucky, which incentivizes you to keep playing Floodborns. You bounce a Floodborn, they're like, okay, cool, here, discard another card for me,
yeah,
please.
yeah. All right, let's move on to our next card, and that is going to be Flabbersham, who
Yes.
is actually seen in two different decks, both Sapphire Steel and Sapphire Ruby,
Yep.
respectively, both of our main item decks. Who knew that item decks would actually be a thing one day?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember set one
Everybody
and
was.
two, everyone was like, items will never
Yep.
be a thing. And then
Yep.
set three, it's like, oh,
Huh. Items
huh,
might be a thing.
dime.
Yeah. It turns out we needed dime, and we needed all the really cheap items that are cantrips as well, that just
Yeah,
the ability to snowball with popsicles, um vitalospheres, and or no, fortispheres, apologies,
yeah.
fortispheres, and Hiram. It's kind of nuts, honestly, the amount of card draw you can generate.
Yeah, especially now with the cards from set three and
Mm-hmm.
four.
Yep. Oh yeah.
We got Hiram back in set two, and we
Yep.
saw it, and it's like, yeah, this is the card that could make the item deck work.
Yep.
We knew he was going to be good, but he did need some of those other items to help the full package
100%.
become. But yeah, Hiram and Popsicle back in set two was made that deck pretty fun.
It's true. It's
Yeah,
true. And it turns out all you needed was the consistency of having just a whole nother playset of popsicle, essentially. Like,
yeah,
turns out then you can do all sorts of crazy stuff, like when you just have cards to dump out of your hand, like, oh, look at that, I'm drawing off of Flaversham, and here's a Fortisphere and another popsicle, and I'm gonna draw two more cards. Like,
yep,
it's kind of wild, the and especially in this game, you can really abuse that type of thing because there's no hand limit. There's no maximum
right,
hand card size in
right,
this game, which that kind of strategy in Magic doesn't work quite as well because you have a 7 card hand size unless you have specific cards that allow you to have no maximum hand size.
right.
So I love that in this game that we have no max hand size. I'm a fan.
Yeah. I'm actually remembering Hearthstone now. I used to have this deck that let me draw a lot, but I would make some mistakes and I would draw too much because they had a max hand size, and it
Yep.
was awful because you got to watch their little animation of you drawing the card and then it goes up in flames because you overdrew, and it's like,
That's
oh no, that's the card I was taking for.
that's even more painful. It just doesn't even allow you to draw past your max hand size.
Yeah, it will
Oh,
go ahead and do it, and you got to watch those cards burn, and they
wow.
become unplayable.
Oh, that's painful. That's painful,
Yeah,
man.
but yeah, no maxi insides, so
Yep.
definitely, and I believe Ruby, Sapphire especially is one of the ones that has been able to kind of contend with Bucky and
Hmm.
Diablo,
Yep.
specifically because of Flaversham and these items.
Yeah, if you can get your Flaversham and stuff down on, there's such weak characters in the Emerald Steel until they can get like a Robin Hood on board. Everything's pretty much really weak in my opinion. Not a lot of
Yeah,
strength out there. And Flaversham has so much willpower that he's safe at least for a couple of turns.
yeah,
And you can outdraw what they can out discard one thing that I have seen is you have to be very careful and not forget to get rid of an exerted Diablo if they have it, because you're just refueling them at the same time,
Yeah.
which sometimes you might have to do in order to get what you need to get down. Like if you can get a dime down, unless they're playing Benjas, there's not a whole lot they're going to do to you.
Yeah.
Like your dime is down, you're just waiting for your Tamatoa or your one copy of. I think people are running one copy of Sapphire Aerial.
Aerial. Yeah.
People are running
The new Aerial.
bells a little bit. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's lots of ways to have just a really big lore on a character and be able to exert that dime and be like, all right, well, your turn. I'm going to do the same thing next turn twice.
Yep. Yep. And then getting into some of our songs that we picked for this list. This one goes all the way back to set one. Be prepared.
Still a
Just
problem. I don't know that it's a
I
problem,
wouldn't
but
call
it
it a
is.
problem.
Yeah, problem's probably the wrong word.
But it's definitely kept. It has always kept aggro from being
Yes.
and
Yeah.
going wide.
Yeah.
It's just always there, and you can never go too wide when facing a Ruby deck.
Yeah, it's true, and you're always on, like, when you're playing Ruby, you feel like you're on a 7-turn clock almost with
Yeah.
not just aggro, but a couple of the other decks out there too. Like I know that Amethyst Emerald never liked seeing it Be Prepared because you tended to go a little bit wider with that deck,
Right.
stuff like that. But it's you kind of almost feel like going beyond like 3 characters is risky.
You're
Overextending at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like, it's fun watching the Pride Lands decks pop off and doing the crazy amount of characters sometimes, but it's like whenever they face a Ruby deck, it's like, the next turn.
Right.
There it goes.
I think Be Prepared, among a couple other things, is another reason you haven't seen like a Rockstar Stitch Pride Lands deck just go nuts, because I think that deck could. Like, there's just, for a lot of the same reasons like some of the other decks go crazy, is like you have the ability to have such a hand size and essentially have answers to anything that you need to have answers for. So,
yeah.
But things like Be Prepared exist, so it kind of keeps things like, even if you have that, because Rockstar Stitch is a character that can stand on his own 2 feet, is a very well statted character, very survivable, great lore, great ability, great everything. There's no reason he shouldn't be played, except for the fact that to utilize him, you have to go super wide, and Be Prepared exists. So
yeah.
Because I would love that. I would love to see a Rockstar deck take a top 4, get into the top 8 or whatever. I think that'd be amazing. I think that like if we can get like a mass protection type of thing, like I would love to see locations come out someday that have one-off abilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if X happens, stop it. Essentially trap cards from Yu-Gi-Oh is what it would feel like, but it wouldn't be a trap, because it's it's just going to be like, do you have to burn something you don't want to do, or burn something to do something you want to do? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I think that would be very interesting to see later on in Lorcana.
So, keeping on the Ruby removal train, we also have Sisu Empowered Sibling. Just a one-sided Be Prepared almost.
It really is too. It's she hits everything with 2 strength or lower.
Or less.
That's what I thought.
There's a reason why the Ruby Sapphire is called Sisu on Ice, when combining it with the ice blocks.
Yep, exactly.
To lower the strength of characters. And another reason why it's able to stand up to the Emerald Steel decks, because a lot of their early game is so low in strength.
Super low. A lot of their strongest stuff. Yeah, a lot of their strongest stuff is is 2 strength or lower. So
Yeah.
she is definitely a fantastic card. My question is why is the threshold for one-sided board wipes 2 strength? Because it's Under the Sea is 2 strength as well. I'm just curious as to why.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's I
I'm
think it's good.
yeah.
I want to know how they came to that. Why it ended up being 2.
Yeah. We'll have to
Testing, probably lots of testing.
lots of testing, I'm sure, and it landed on that number.
Yeah. And honestly, let's face it, she has really great stats too, and you can shift her. So
she got plenty of shift targets this set, and she also had shift targets from previous sets. She's got plenty.
I think that the 3-drop Sisu, the hand Sisu, the one that cares about opponent's hand size, I think that's a perfect target for it personally. You could get some good removal in with her early, and like take out something that you don't like, take out a location and then shift her into Sisu. Good game,
Definitely. Yeah. And even the other one, I know the other one doesn't see as much play anymore, but I know early on,
still a little bit,
along with the Ice Blocks, still getting to do that early removal and control the board early.
Yep.
Just doesn't hit Bucky.
Exactly. That's that little squirrel, man.
I think keeping on the Ruby removal, let's go ahead and talk about Madame Medusa, the boss.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This card alone has just decided whether or not a card is playable in any decks opposing a Ruby deck, because it basically everyone is looking at their basically 4 or 5 ink or higher cards, and if they have 3 strengths, it's a huge detriment to that card on whether it'll be included in the deck or not, because Madame Medusa exists.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you've all has seen in the comments of every card reveal on whether or not
I think that's a really...
It's become a meme at this point.
It really is.
Dies to Medusa.
Yeah.
It used to be Dies to Maui, but now it's Dies to Medusa.
Yeah. I think that's so amazing because, we're talking about meta-defining cards. I think the fact that this card has become the meme that it has is such a good metric to judge a card like this by. And I think she might be. As far as like for the cost, she might have the worst stats of all the cards that we're talking about. Honestly, a 4/4/4/4/1 for 6 uninkable.
Yeah.
Other than that, utterly horrible. Other than her on playability, which her on playability is fantastic. Hits like 85% of everything you want to get rid of. You know what I mean? So
which is just nuts. And this is like the card I look at to like, yes, this is why a card like this should be uninkable.
Yes, 100%.
And I look at some other uninkable cards and it's like, it's nowhere near that. Why is this uninkable?
100%. And honestly, like, you can draw so many comparisons. She's kind of got a twin sister.
With Lady Tremaine.
And I've never really noticed this, but in the art, they're literally sitting the exact same.
Huh.
Like, if you look at the art, their body positioning is exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's insane. It kind of blows me away. We're not the art people, though. I'm sure Liam and Aaron already noticed this forever ago. But they're
curious.
Everything.
Now.
It's kind of blowing me away that their body. It's because I'm looking at them next to each other.
Are they? Is it the same artist? Maybe.
Nope. Jackie Druka did Madame Medusa, and Ariana Rhea did Lady Tremaine. And I think it's interesting because Lady Tremaine, same cost, uninkable. She's a 3/4 with one more lore, but you can shift her. We just don't have any real good. Haha! See, look at that look at that gorgeous card right there.
Yeah.
See, you see that's the one time where you're enchanted. Is like, I don't know what the normal art looks like. All I have is this enchanted. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yes, she is definitely worrisome.
Unfortunately for Jermaine, it's just the opponent getting to choose is.
Yeah, there are very few. Yeah, there are very few times where there's just a Bucky out there that late in the game.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, going back. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Lucky Dime, our 7-cost unequal item that pay 2 more and get the lore off a character. Which, when everyone first saw it, I think they were like, eh.
A lot of people were like, like a lot of people were like, I don't know, maybe in like a weird Sapphire Amethyst with Magic of Dispel deck, maybe I could see it work. Yeah. Turns out all you have to do is have a bunch of other tiny items and make something really big. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, Tamatoa.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty crazy that, like, I love the fact that this is a brand new game for all of us, because most people's like first impressions on cards are wrong. all of us are guilty of it. Like
right.
Like there are so many times where we've been like, especially the early days when we were doing like round tables and we were talking about cards. Yeah. A lot of the cards that we've talked about were like, well, it'll never see play. Maybe you'll draft it. Turns out, I feel like at least one more is on this. Hiram's on this list. It was kind of that same thing with him. Yeah, it's just really funny when you see stuff like that. When you see stuff turn around like that, because a lot of the times I think a lot of us forget this is a brand new game for all of us.
Yep. And it's like, yeah, a lot of us, especially, we have all this experience from all the previous games that we used to play, but that doesn't always translate to knowing what we're going to be doing for this game.
Exactly.
It's like, this is Magic. It wasn't that good, but here it's actually really good.
Yep, exactly, yeah. Man. I love it, and I love that too. It's like,
yeah,
it's getting to experience new parts of the TCG space that I didn't get to experience, and new ways to play this type of game that we all love, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, just it's so expensive, but paired with everything else in Sapphire to ramp you up to being able to just plop it down and get to your lore off of the character that you played the previous turn, or if it's late enough in the game and you play Bell and Dime and do it right there and get your 5 lore, it just allowing these huge lore swings.
I've seen people go from like 4 or 5 to win in a turn, like, and it's impressive. It really is, because I'm not trying to say this is an easy win type of mechanic, because you have to be very good. You have to know your deck. You have to know exactly what you don't have. Like, you have to know exactly what you've inked. You have to know exactly what's in discard. You have to know what are the chances of what I'm going to draw into, because at that point you're trying to combo a bunch of different like cantrips together to get to the cards that you need to do that one big swing. I've seen a lot of people do it, man, but you know, I'm thankful to know a lot of really good TCG players. So
yeah,
it's just about practice. You just got practice.
Yeah, and I love the deck. Nat right now plays the Ruby Sapphire, and it's just so fun to watch it go from start so slow. It's like, how does this deck win? And then all of a sudden, oh, that's how.
Exactly, because it like, I think it lulls some people, especially people that haven't played it. It lulls people to a false sense of security where they're like, okay, it's turn like 6 and they haven't done anything, and then it's like turn 7 and they're like, I lost. What happened?
Right.
Did I go somewhere for a minute? What happened?
Right. I love it.
Oh, me too. It's great. It's good stuff.
All right, moving on to Queen's Castle. Just the the location. This is the location. There are some other locations that see some play in some decks, but this is always the location to be
Yeah,
because it's got a great ability, it's got a great move cost, it's got a good amount of lore on it. It
it's inkable. Yeah,
is ankable.
yeah. It is definitely the location that all other locations are judged by. I feel like you have
Right.
to be able to get this level of value out of a location. I think like worthy mentions as far as locations are like Pride Lands is pretty good. I just
Yeah.
don't, again, because like we said earlier, be prepared and stuff. Like it's just not
Right.
viable for those same reasons. But the Queen's Castle, the 7 willpower, the 4 play cost, the 1 movement cost, the ability, it's all amazing and it works
Yep.
in the decks that run it. It works phenomenally, and you're usually drawing a couple extra cards.
Yeah, and it's one of the few ones, unlike some of the other locations, where having multiple things at the location helps it.
It does, yeah, hundred
Yeah,
percent.
some of the other ones, it's like you just put the one character there, and that's all you need there. So it's
Yep,
just
there's no
like
benefit other than
cool.
that. Yep, yep, exactly.
Yeah, so one of the few ones where the main ability of it stacks, and you can do some crazy stuff with that,
Yeah,
and just the willpower to survive Maui, which is usually known as the location destroyer. So
it's true.
unless Maui has help,
Yeah, exactly,
it'll stick around
exactly.
a turn. So
Yeah. You definitely want to wait to play Queen's Castles, in my opinion, till a little bit later in a match. Maybe play one. If you haven't inked any or you haven't discarded any, play one. Wait a few more turns. Don't play them back to back because you're just asking for them to just get removed right away.
yeah,
So get to the point where you play one, get rid of whatever you can that is going to get rid of it,
yeah,
and then go from there.
yep. Usually a good play after a be prepared if you're
Mm-hmm.
Ruby Amethyst.
Ooh, best play.
Yeah,
Best
yeah,
play. Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Love that play. It's like, all right, now you do things, I guess. And I
yeah.
mean, unless they're playing a deck that's running Maui, they can't contest it, and you're gaining at least
Yeah,
2
not
lore off that
immediately.
card, guaranteed. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. So,
yeah, unless they're facing steel and they're running rise.
yep, yep. And I think it's a big reason that some Ruby Amethyst lists are still running crabs, is just to get over that hump to be able to get
Yeah,
rid of that
right. Yeah,
early.
yeah, the crab plus Madam M
Yeah, 100%.
combo. Yeah, that does take care of
Yep,
castles.
absolutely.
All right, on to a couple more songs here. First of which we'll look at is "Let the Storm Rage On."
Yes.
Uh, this one, I not quite as meta defining, but it's just so solid of a card. I think it's pretty much in every steel list. I feel like,
And
almost.
that's my thing about Let the Storm Rage On too. Is I
Yeah,
don't know that it's defining so much because there's a lot of stuff out there that can survive too, but it will. I think that just the value that it can generate so early, like in a steel song list, you're singing it on 2, you're getting rid of something your opponent has, you're drawing a card. That's a lot.
no,
That's
that's a lot
you're
for
doing
turn
a
two.
lot. Yeah, for turn 2
For
you're doing a lot.
free,
Yeah, for
usually,
free
if
usually.
you're syncing it with
Yeah,
that Cinderella.
exactly.
Yeah,
100%. And
yeah,
even in decks that are hard playing it, because I've seen Bucky lists. Bucky lists generally run this card too. So,
right.
um, I don't know. It's just too solid. It's just way too solid. I know it's uninkable, and that's like people's like one complaint against it, but I think that's negligible. You're drawing a card off of it. Oftentimes, you're hard playing or singing it as soon as you can. You
Yeah,
know, and I don't think it can be understated how much Steel needs card draw. So
yeah,
it does have a lot of tools at its disposal, but it has like very little card draw, like
yeah.
negligible card draw. It's that and Fortisphere and Beast.
The next card.
Yeah, Beast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next card too. And
Yep.
the next card too. But that's kind of like like the next card is kind of the big red button of draw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, big red button. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about
Yeah.
that. Whole new world. Just since set one, it has definitely decreased in play, especially recently. But it has always been on people's radar,
Yeah.
and early Steel Song, especially being able to sing it as early as turn two, it used to really wreck with some decks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you hold a hand that you can play, and then you immediately have to discard most of it. Like
Yeah.
other than like the one or two cards you got to play, like that hurts. Like
Yeah.
just to get another, like if you draw into nothing but a bunch of like
High end.
high end
Yeah.
or uninkable cards, you're sunk, dude. Like that can
Yeah.
that especially early days in Lorcana, that in and of itself won people games. That
Yep.
literally, like, once you hit that point, it's so hard to going like 3 turns without doing really anything hurts so much.
Yeah.
Especially by
Yeah.
that time, they're probably dropping like a Robin Hood or a Beast or something, and it's just like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Yeah. You now have nothing to contend with what they're
100%.
doing.
Yeah, 100%. So, and it's hopefully, and if you're playing it later, you're playing it with like a probably near empty hand, hoping your opponent has a hand, so it's just like you had some stuff you wanted, I had nothing, now we're back to an even playing field. So
That or you're playing your Jafar combo.
Jafar combo.
I got wrecked by that at my last locals.
Hey,
I
it
almost
can
won the
work.
game.
Yeah.
I almost won both games, but the turn before I could do the final, get the rest of my lore, they got the Jafar
Yeah.
combo off, and I'm like, well,
Yep, GG on that one. And
GG's.
you also got to understand. I've seen a couple of people do this, especially early on in this set. Was a whole new world into Diablo. Don't do that. You don't want to give your opponent 17 or 14 cards unless you're trying to mill them. I guess. I mean,
I guess that was the idea. Is especially if you can double sync it, have them
yeah,
draw all those
yeah,
cards, and then
28
make them
cards. Yeah,
discard all the cards. But
that'd be kind
yeah,
of nuts.
that's still risky.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because you're counting on the fact that you're able to do it immediately after.
I could see a world where if you could tutor cards in this or tutor songs, like if there was a probably a song that would allow you to tutor another song,
Mhm.
that could be a lot of fun. That could be a blast. So
Righty, that's pretty much all of the
yeah,
cards that we wanted to bring up for what's defining the meta right
yeah,
now.
some heavy hitters in there for sure.
Some heavy hitters. But then we want to talk about uh, banning cards.
Yeah,
We're still kind of early into the competitive life of Lorcana, but everyone's been there's been discourse about it for since set one about which card should be
it's
banned.
true. It's true.
Set one, it was Be Prepared and Whole New World, and now we got Bucky and so on. Um, but for those of you not familiar with TCGs, the way banning works is either outright banning the card to where you cannot play it at all, or through limiting the card by reducing the max amount of copies of the card you can play in your deck. So those are the two main styles, and different games have done different things. Like Yu-Gi-Oh uh, has always done their they've done a mix of where cards are outright banned and some are limited. I know for Digimon, they usually just limit the card to one.
Yeah,
The-
I think that there might be one card outright banned. At least the last time I played, but
yeah,
it's the majority of the time they limited cards.
yeah, yeah. So I'll just go ahead and ask you, especially in your time with previous TCGs, what do you think feels more effective between the two, like between outright banning the card or just having it limited.
I think personally that it's probably banning. You know, banning's. If a card is truly troublesome, if a card is warping a format to the point where it's not fun anymore, if a card is causing turns to take way too long, without like an actual resolution to the game, like if you take a 4 or 5 minute turn but you won, I'm okay with that. But if you're taking 4 or 5 minute turns multiple times and not even winning, there's a problem.
Hmm.
So I personally think in those situations, I think banning's the right way to go. Honestly, I personally think in most games, when you limit a card, you're kind of just effectively banning it anyway. Because in a lot of decks, in a lot of games that don't have like uh, consistent tutors, so I guess that could go for certain formats in certain games too. If you don't have
Yep.
consistent ways to get that one single card, a lot of people just abandon it, and it's
Right.
effectively banned anyway. So
Yeah. I guess this is just like a little personal thing for me. I understand outright banning, but part of me kind of likes limiting because I still get to play the card that I pulled,
right,
and it's not just a dead card in my collection essentially. But I do understand outright banning versus
yeah,
uh, limiting.
yeah.
You do have a lot of history in Magic. What's their practice? Uh,
Most of the time they just ban, they just
yeah.
flat out ban cards, and more recently with Magic the Gathering, because they have so many cards and there are so many card interactions,
Hmm.
um, they have begun doing something, and I don't remember exactly when it started, but I know one just happened very recently. But they are pre-banning cards. They are banning cards before they are even released to the public.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah,
Uh,
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate when you and you know, a lot of people like to blame the game designers, like, oh, you shouldn't have designed a card that could be abused. Like, well, when the card catalog is this big,
right.
it is literally not possible to run every single interaction and permutation. It's just
Right.
not. And they do their best. They do their work in good faith. Like, they're trying their best to make the best game they can.
Right.
I fully believe. Um, Sometimes cards have to get pre-banned though when you have that
Yeah.
many cards. And yeah, and they are pretty. Um, they will do Magic will do emergency bans, because they have like, they will release the ban list updates to it every, I think it's quarterly.
Yeah.
But if a card is way too much of a problem, they will do emergency bans as well.
Yeah. And I guess we kind of have that with like Pokemon and Digimon because those games they're out in those the sets are out in Japan for a while
Yes,
before they
yes.
get over here. So sometimes you'll uh, especially when I was getting into Digimon and I was looking into it, it's like there's a set that's not out yet, but hey, this one card from the set is going to be limited
Yep, exactly.
because they found out over there, hey, it's busted.
Yeah, and honestly, I like that personally. I pre-ban a card. I won't bother buying it if I'm playing at whatever format and or game that it's being in. I won't. I won't play that deck or whatever. You know, it's. I think
Yeah,
that's. I don't think that's a bad thing. I
yeah,
know that people could think it's a bad thing, but I'm not. I'm not mad at it, and I'm not mad at emergency bans either. Sometimes, you know, a big like a after Bochum happens, or Bochum, however you say it. Again, sorry, Germany. Um, if it's truly problematic and it has created a really unfun playing environment, Ravensburger might have to do that. Might have to pull out the old ban hammer. Who knows? I don't personally think it'll happen, but I think that I think they're discussing it at Ravensburger headquarters. I think they know Bucky's a problem. Whether it's enough of a problem to ban, I don't know if that can be justified.
yeah. Uh, I guess that begs the question is like how long they should wait until
Right.
yeah, like like how long would it usually take for like Magic to get around to? Because he did mention an emergency ban. Like, what would prompt an emergency ban there?
Oh, let me. I'm gonna give me a hot second here. I'm gonna try to, because I think I remember the card that it was. Yeah, so Oko Thief of Crowns was a card that was played. I think it was the Wilds of Eldraine set. It was like a storybook set, and I don't remember when it got released. So let's look that up too, because I just found it got banned on November 18th. Okay, so it took a while for it to get banned. So because it came out September 8th.
September
So
to
2 months.
November, two
Yeah,
months.
2.5 months. So that one that might not be the one that I was thinking of then, but I know Oko was a huge problem. I do remember that
Yeah,
being a huge problem. He came down too early and he turned your stuff into elks, which nobody thought was bad, but turns out it was horrible.
yeah.
It's just how has it been, like what, like a month and a half for the set to be out so far?
This set, yeah, it
It's
came
like
out in
May,
May,
right?
so
Yeah.
we're almost at the 2 month mark.
All right. So in my opinion, if Balcom goes bad, this would be the perfect time for them to ban a card if they were going to do it.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I really do.
At the very latest, maybe Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So,
And they might be waiting for Texas too.
yeah,
Because I think that the European um, uh, community and the North America community, they mix a little bit, but as far as like play styles and deck, like it's overarching, it's all the same thing. But you can see the different ways that they play across the pond. You really can.
yeah,
So maybe
yeah,
they're waiting for the, like you said, Texas. I think that
yeah,
might be the case.
yeah. And I guess that's what they really need is the data to support.
Yeah,
And because yeah, everyone could be screaming about Bucky, but it could be
yeah.
something that
Does
only
the data back that up?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like just because people are upset or feel like a card is unfair doesn't mean that the data, like the individual can't be louder than the group. You know what I mean? Like it
right,
has to actually make sense. It can't just be a small minority just being the loudest,
yeah,
because
and
there are plenty of people playing it and enjoying it. So
yeah. And it could just be a thing where next set we see something that they know, hey, next set there's going to be this thing that will really mess with those Bucky decks. Like,
right, yeah, the silver bullet, sure.
Yeah, like
Can you imagine something that turns off shifting? There you go. That helps.
kind of like how the Floodborn Ursula turns off songs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So
Could happen.
like
It could happen.
yeah,
Like an item of some sort.
item or uh, what I've been hoping for is the cards that benefit from being discarded.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
100%. Bring
yeah.
bring that kind of
Like
archetype
a
in there.
Sapphire card. When this card is discarded, put it in your inkwell.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's like, hey man, you want to get me to 10 ink this quickly? Sure.
sure.
Yeah, you want to ramp me? Okay. I don't need fish bones anymore.
Yeah, especially when a lot of the discard effects are you choose what you're discarding for the most part. So
Right.
yeah, cards like that would really flip that around.
100%. Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be like, oh yeah, Bucky's not so bad now. Please discard.
An ability, like a character giving you the ability to sing songs from the discard pile too, would be wild. I think that'd be a really fun mechanic.
Almost have that with Deceiver of All, kind of.
Almost, yeah, almost. See, and I think that in the right color, it could be, or the right ink, it could be amazing, and it could be super duper fun because you could have a bunch of the like cheap cantrip songs and stuff like that, and just keep bouncing them back, stuff like that. Or like it would be with much like Ursula, I assume it's sing it from the discard, put it to the bottom of your deck.
And also, fun thing, it would make a card like Ransack from set 1 playable.
It would. Yeah. You're 100% right. It would. That's funny.
I really look forward to stuff like that, where it's like all of a sudden this little card from set forever ago is viable now because they did something here.
Right. I think a really good place for that too is going to be multiplayer.
Oh yeah.
Multiplayer is going to be, like, especially when we get like 10, 15, 20 sets deep, like multiplayer is going to be bananas, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait.
Alrighty, so I guess to wrap it up, we kind of talked over some of these and the meta defining, but there's a few others here that have been up for discussion for banning for Lorcana, and I guess we just want to look over those real quick and just see if we agree with that or see if there's anything. I guess we kind of talked about Bucky and Diablo a little bit.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty self-evident. We all kind of know why the squirrel why there are good arguments why the squirrel should be on the chopping block for sure.
Yeah.
And or the bird.
Yeah. But as we said, they could be releasing something in the future that might help mitigate that. So if it is not banned, I assume that's because they know something down the line is going to help mitigate its how it's overpowering the meta right now.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Next up, since that one, Whole New World has always been, mostly because there's a very similar, or if not exact card in Magic that's been banned because of it.
Yep. Wheel of Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ban the wheel. Always. That's just it will eventually. Like, we almost saw it with Jafar. Yeah. Not quite broken. Like, all it takes is a third card, though. We get a third card with those two, and everything's off the rails, man.
Yeah. Like you were saying earlier, if you got a thing that tutored for a song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just need to be able to have, like, 2 or 3 of them consistently, and it's really hard to be able to do that, honestly.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Some cards that were not in our meta defining, but they're almost. They are kind of meta defining.
They're staples for sure.
They're their own package. And that's the Merlin Man package.
Yep.
Specifically, the goat, rabbit, and then the Mem Fox.
Yep. It's really those 3 together that is the trouble. Like, each one of them individually isn't so bad, but when you have access to all 3 of them, and then kind of Snake too, I honestly more nowadays I'm off Snake a little bit, but
yeah,
these 3 themselves can create some loops that you can't really get out of.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I love the package personally, but and honestly, it's not so much nowadays where people are bringing up the idea of the banning and restricting these cards, but they were hot topics, when they first came out, especially.
I think right now the only one that's really being talked about is Rabbit.
Yeah,
just getting all that card draw and. Especially off of the bounces, off of playing, and when it's banished, you can get so much draw off of it. So,
it'll. I don't see this archetype going anywhere, and as a matter of fact, they're never going to be able to get away from having to print cards like this in the future. Like, this is these types of cards are very popular in TCGs, like the enters and leave abilities, the when this enters bounce this abilities. They're all very popular in a number of different TCGs. So I don't see them ever actually going anywhere permanently. I do think they're going to take a look at the strength levels of some of these cards, though.
Yeah, they definitely have to be careful with it going forward. So It may be a thing, not anytime soon, but one of those things, kind of like Wheel, when that card comes around that makes this package a bit more broken.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Or do we have? We need like if we have a card that says it's kind of like Phil, the new Phil that's at Phil of TDs that's in
Yeah.
steel for heroes entering Gain of Lore. If we get something that's just characters entering, or maybe limited by color, like
Yeah.
Gain Lore, boom, like you
Yeah.
blew the doors off this. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. Which, like they did with Phil, I think they're going to be careful about stuff like that. So,
100%, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
If
Phil
they're-
definitely came along with some wisdom. Like they realized they couldn't because they could have very easily made that card a lot, because that card's strong. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
the card is strong. I don't think it has the cards to support it yet, but it is a very strong card. So
Yeah.
and it could have been even more so.
And then last but not least, another one from set one, and definitely, I don't think I've heard it as much now. Be
No.
prepared.
Yeah,
I think people have just kind of accepted that fact.
they really have. Yeah, people really have. People are kind of off the idea. I think a lot of people just don't think of like a true aggro deck as viable in Lorcana, and they're just kind of okay with that in the current game right now. I don't personally like it because I love playing aggro, but you can still pull some wins. I mean, that's how I got my set. That's how I got my Stitch last set, was an aggro deck. So I mean, it can work. It's just, is it the best option? No, not right now.
Yeah, especially for a larger event.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, where it's a lot, where you really won't know your matchups going.
Right.
In.
Right.
Yeah, with like set champs, you can kind of gauge your local scene and cater to that, and sometimes aggro can do that for you.
A little bit. Yep. Sometimes you're right. Yep.
Yeah. But that's all that we were gonna talk about today.
Yeah.
So be sure to let us know in the comments below if you agree with us. Be sure to subscribe as we continue marching ever closer to our 50th episode.
Ever closer.
And yeah, just be sure to check out everything in the descriptions below. All of our socials are on there. And just have an amazing set champs. And if you're going to Texas, good luck. And
Good luck.
on.